Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome. This is Wacky Wednesday on the Arrowhead Addict channel. I'm Adam Best here with my co-pilot Sterling Holmes. Producer Richard will try to keep us in the air, right? Keep this plane from crashing. And camp is finally here. You know, we're through the most boring part of the off season, and camp is here. So aren't you excited about that?
Oh, I'm stoked. Speaking of pilots, last flight I was on was flying to Tahoe. The flight attendant gave me a free beer because I was apparently giving off, and I quote, big time pilot vibes. Didn't think that I looked like a pilot, but apparently when I have a mustache, I do. And so I got a free beer for quote pilot vibes. So
okay,
got that going for me.
Well, I'm officially bringing back the mustache now. If that's all it takes to give off pilot vibes, I love big pilot vibes. Nothing better than that. Did you see that Xavier Worthy had the hammy wrapped?
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, we can talk about this now. Xavier Worthy specifically here, I thought was a little fascinating. Andy Reid came out and said, yeah, we're going to ease him into it, as, of course, Holmes says there will be no easing into it. One could be injury talk. One could be playbook talk. It was nice to hear Xavier say, if this was a game, I'm playing. If there was a game, he's in. Take that as you will. This hamstring has clearly been a little more serious than maybe we were led on to believe. But again, we're talking July 17th, the start of training camp. They will be very cautious with it. And he was out there today participating. Obviously had a drop early on, hit his hand, hurt his finger. He bounced back, made a super nice play. The play of the day, according to a lot of folks that were out there. Obviously, our guy Todd Lebo from 810 was out there. I believe it was against Najee Johnson. Made a phenomenal catch. So Xavier Worthy looking like he was pretty good today. And again, not like Rashee Rice. No rookie that I heard from today has yacked. So that's a good step too.
Yeah, and I'm just glad the hamstring is feeling good enough for him to play. It's very easy for these wide receivers, if something throws off their rookie year, like Sky Moore dropping punts, they might never get right. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened with Sky Moore, but it could have permanently shook his confidence. And you see when these guys get hurt or don't fire for one reason or another as a rookie, a lot of times they never break out. Another thing I wanted to hit on, Andy Reid, I'm not sure if you checked out what he said on the Scoop City pod that The Athletic is doing, but he was talking about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. And I thought it was really insightful and funny how he broke it down. He said, I think it's good for both of them because when Travis is at our concerts, he can kind of be the water boy, doesn't have to be the star. He actually used the term water boy, which was awesome. And then he said with Taylor, kind of vice versa, when she's at the Chiefs game, she doesn't have to be the exact center of attention. She can just kind of chill and be one of the fans. And he thinks it's kind of good for both of them. I thought it was enlightening.
A little bit of a hot take here. I think I hate talking Taylor and Travis, and I was there in Tahoe, and I was talking to Kylie about this, and I love them. They're all very nice people. It's not anything against them. It's just, I think personal lives, a lot of the time, I enjoy them being personal, right? But there's one aspect of this that I think is very fun. I think this gives Travis Kelce, a lot of people say, he's preparing for life after the NFL. Sure. I think this keeps him younger. Like, I think this gives him the ability to read. I know he's traveling and doing all these things, but for Travis, I think it's fun for him. Like, I think this makes him feel young again. This is him living it up, being the face of the bleeping world, man. Like, this to me is fun for Travis. I think it keeps him young. So, and rejuvenated, if you will, as he heads into the football season. You ain't taking hits in the offseason, right? But in the offseason now, you're the man. You're the dude. And so for me, I think if you're Travis, this almost extends his career. I get I'm in the minority here, but I think this keeps him young, if you will.
I hope so. I'd love to see or say years down the road that it reinvigorated him, and him trying to keep up with Taylor Swift off the field kept him young. We'll see. We'll see. He says he's going to keep riding till the wheels fall off, right? That's the quote that he keeps going back to.
I do love Angry Drunken German. Apparently is the mascot. Kind of like that. ADG, you might be the AA mascot. I like that. I see that comment from Jeremy. Appreciate you here, Jeremy, as well as from ADG. That's funny.
And our guy Jalen hit the Travis Kelce wheels fall off quote right when I said it. So great minds think alike. We've got a fun show for you guys today. We'll continue our Chiefs schedule series from last week when we looked at the Broncos and Patrick Allen talked to a Chargers guest. We're going to analyze opponent strength and kind of keep that going. And if you want to bet on that schedule, boy, do we have a deal for you.
If you want to bet, you need to go to FanDuel. You got to download the FanDuel app, and you'll definitely want to take advantage of this offer because new users who sign up through our link must deposit $10 and place a first wager of $5 on any live bet. If that first bet wins, you'll receive $200 in bonus bets straight into your account. This offer is only available if you sign up through our link, bit.ly/Arrow150. You can find that link in the description below our stream, as well as scan the QR code on screen to start signing up. Again, the link is bit.ly/Arrow150. Offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly and check the episode description for the link and the full terms of the offer.
One more thing I noticed, you got a microphone stand, man. You're not like Mean Gene Okerlund back in the day, holding the mic, interviewing Hulk Hogan or whatever.
Yeah, I just got it. And this mic is very heavy. I mean, this mic is like 8 pounds. So,
so you were doing like curls, like taking turns.
Yeah, but now I got a mic stand. I see you from Becky. I'm ready to hear about how our rookies are looking. Again, first day of training camp. Don't got a lot to tell you. This was more or less I don't want to say a walkthrough, but you getting your feet wet right here. Ian Book was making a lot of the throws, obviously, today. So whatever your thoughts are on Ian Book, there you go. Xavier Worthy dropped the ball early on, hurt his finger, came back, made a phenomenal play down the line. Again, I believe it was against Najee Johnson, was what I heard. Kingsley Suamataia. We'll see. He said the biggest test for him is going to be the playbook, right? Just getting involved. It says him and Wanye Morris, they're boys. They'll still be boys whoever wins the left tackle job, but it's business. I like that little caveat that Kingsley threw on at the end right there. And then the other person who spoke today was Jaden Hicks. A little more reserved, Jaden Hicks says he's learning all the spots, says he's learning a little bit of everything, zone coverage, man coverage in the box. And this is nothing new. The Chiefs, and particularly in the Spagnuolo era, what they do is they quote, it's like a fire hose, right? They give you everything at once. And then they'll start to see what you're good at and what you're not good at. And I think that's just as important. I've died on this hill of why the Chiefs secondary has been so successful. They don't put guys in situations that they are weak in. For example, Justin Reed, we know he's great at the line of scrimmage. You don't always see him drop back deep into coverage. A lot of times that was Mike Edwards. That was his job. You wouldn't see Mike Edwards at the line of scrimmage. Now, there's always going to be a caveat. There's always those guys who can do it all, the L'Jarius Sneeds, if you will. But for example, going back even further, Trevarius Ward, what did he thrive at? Man coverage. Wasn't good in zone. Trevarius was a very good man coverage corner. So a lot of times, half the time on his side would be man coverage defense. The other side would be zone. So this is what they do in training camp, especially with the rookies. What are these guys good at? Where do they excel? They'll give him everything because they want to see firsthand. Maybe they didn't think this guy was going to be good in zone. Well, he might shine and say, yeah, he's actually better than we thought. But this is the time where they give him everything, see where they excel, and again, more importantly, see where their deficits are and try and keep them out of that come game time.
Man, I don't know if you can hear that, but sirens are going crazy. I think they finally caught me. I've been harboring Chiefsaholic here in my guest room. So
I think my take was too fire.
Might have been too far. Couple thoughts there, just piggybacking. Great to have Najee Johnson back. I hope he works himself into the rotation. And I think we're going to get a little bit of intel on Kingsley Suamataia pretty soon. Because if you think about Trey Smith, if I'm remembering right, everyone was kind of surprised that he was running with the one so early. And that kind of tipped the team's hat as to how early he would be a starter. So we might have some information soon. Let's jump right into our segment. It's a new segment, ranking Chiefs opponents with a draft. It's been a while since we've done a draft, and you and I have kind of competed one-on-one. We could just do joint power rankings, but where's the fun in that? This is Wacky Wednesday. We get a little crazy. So what we're going to do, Sterling and I will each draft 7 teams here, trying to pick the toughest matchups. Not the best teams necessarily, even though that's part of the consideration, the toughest matchups for the Chiefs in particular. And after each pick, we'll analyze the selection. The person who picked will kind of explain their pick. The other person will try to pick it apart a little bit. And at the end, whoever has the better lineup wins. Of course, that is subjective, but you guys in the chat will have a big say about that. We'll go snake style to keep things fair. And Richard here is going to help us with a coin flip. Sterling, it's your call.
Tails never fails. Tails never fails.
It did not fail.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah,
baby.
I'm a tails never fails guy too. So I had a feeling that was bad news for me. Do you want to receive or defer? So do you want 1 and 4 or 2 or 3?
Oh, 1 and 4, because I think there's a clear cut number 1.
Yeah.
So I'm going 1, and you give me San Fran. Like,
Okay.
I'm trying to make the toughest schedule, correct? I'm supposed to pick the toughest teams here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I provided a bit of information here. I've included Bill Barnwell's ESPN offensive weapons rankings. So running back, wide receiver, and tight end. He just did that a few days ago. And Pro Football Network's recent team defense ranks. So I just kind of wanted to take a look at this from those 2 different perspectives. We can mention that as each team is picked. That way we don't overweight quarterbacks or just talk about quarterbacks. Because I think sometimes in our coverage and certainly like the hot takeification of, First Take and all these shows, it's very quarterback centric. And I think when you look beyond maybe Josh Allen per se, you're going to be, or Justin Herbert, you're going to be surprised how these teams look. So you started with the San Francisco 49ers. No surprise there. They're number 1 on my board too. Their offensive weapons are ranked 1st and their defense is ranked 5th. Just a no-brainer for you, obviously.
Yeah, that's the best team besides the Chiefs in the NFL. AFC, NFC doesn't matter. It's San Fran. They're so damn complete, man. Although Brandon Ayuk does want to trade, so we'll see how that plays out. But there have been talks that the teams allegedly have called San Fran, and apparently the 49ers basically say, no, we're not trading him. So take that as you will. Looks like he'll be playing 1 more year in San Fran. I don't think he's going to hold out. Seems like a pretty silly decision when you see how many good receivers are littered around the NFL right now.
I might be going out on a ledge here, but given the ages of the targets in San Francisco, I think he might be the best right now. He really came into his own. Not the most unique. I mean, Debo and Kittle and Christian McCaffrey are all very unique, but he's the young buck. His yards per route run was, I think, right there with Tyreek last year, top of the league. Unbelievable route runner.
Dude, he's a nerd's wet dream. Every nerd you talk about, it's always like, who's the best receiver in football? And almost every single dude's like, yeah, it's Brandon Ayuk. I can't get there, but I think he's probably top 7, closer to 6, maybe knocking on the door of 5. Brandon Ayuk is such a talented player. If you watch a lot of San Fran games, he is the best weapon probably on that team. Like if you're telling me I can either have him or CMC, I might go Ayuk. Him or Kittle, Ayuk. Him or Debo, Ayuk. You got to start watching more Brandon Ayuk film because that guy is filthy.
Yeah, and it seems like the 49ers are trying to lowball him. I think they want to pay him more like a number 2, like Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle, and they're very good number 2s. But I think he needs to be paid somewhere in between Amon-Ra St. Brown and maybe A.J. Brown. Like,
Sure.
He's that kind of player. He's that kind of player. And yes, I'm filibustering a little bit because I don't know what the hell I'm doing here, but it's time to make my picks. And yeah, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens here just because I'm such a huge believer in Lamar Jackson and that front office, that coaching staff. I believe that you should keep betting on good organizations. And over the past 20 years or so, maybe 25 years, they've been as consistent as a franchise can be. And they were right there at the mountaintop before the Chiefs knocked them off. So I think they took that step. And remember, Patrick Mahomes got knocked out of the AFC Conference Championship before he made it to the Super Bowl. Now, that wasn't really his fault. I think maybe more of the Ravens not winning that game was on Lamar, but they got very close. So I'm going to take them, and then I'm going to do something that I know you're not going to like. It's not out of spite either. I'm going to take the Houston Texans because if you look at the Baltimore Ravens, their offensive weapons are 15th and their defense is 6th. You look at the Houston Texans, their offensive weapons are 4th. Their defense is ranked 8th. If CJ Stroud takes another leap and becomes,
or just stays the same. I mean,
well, yeah. Because everyone has tape on him now. So he could regress a little bit. I don't think he's going to, but like you said, even if he stays the same, this team that they built around him is better. They brought in some really good veterans. I think they've been doing an excellent job of building that team. I like the coaching staff, D'Amico Ryans and co, Bobby Slowik. I like them a lot. And I think I'm in agreement with you that I have them. I think we rank them number 2 in the AFC and sticking to that. So those are my 2 picks. Who are you going to go with at 4?
Yeah, people called me crazy last year. I might be crazy, but I was also right. The Texans they're a damn fine team, and they got better. I don't know how much better Stroud's going to be this year. It's almost the sophomore slump, if you will. You mentioned the tape on him. But they also have the addition of Stephon Diggs. And Stephon Diggs is no longer wide receiver 1. He's like wide receiver 3 between Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and now him. They brought in, was it Nick Chubb? No. Joe Mixon.
Who? If they brought in Nick Chubb, that'd be
not Nick Chubb.
Really
That's
scary.
On me. Was it Joe Mixon? Was the running back they brought in?
It was Joe Mixon.
And they have a good offensive line. Defensive, they're salty. I'm all in on the Texans. I am a little nervous about the sophomore step back, but not necessarily as drastic as maybe Jalen Hurts was. You know, he took a step back last year. It wasn't necessarily a sophomore year, but he took a step back last year. Same concerns with Jordan Love. Great last year. First year as a starter, but we'll see what happens going forward if there is a little step back with the tape.
Well, with Stroud, as opposed to Jalen Hurts, I think the processing and his ability to read, he's a supercomputer out there. For a rookie, it was phenomenal. You almost see shades of Drew Brees or Joe Burrow. I know maybe that's not the first comparison you make, but I think he plays a lot like those guys. His football IQ is well beyond his years.
Yeah. Well, you left me with 2 very good picks. This is why I did not defer and I accepted the football. I knew what you're going to do. You're going to take my Texans, which was hard for me, but that means I go San Fran and then I get the Bengals. Let's be real. The over-under in the AFC, look at the Bengals. A lot of odds makers are very high on Cincy. Now, if you know me, I'm a Joe Burrow truther, if you will, where why do we say Lamar Jackson's injury prone when Joe Burrow can't finish a season either? At some point, it's Joe Burrow injury prone. I think we're so enamored by they're the only team outside of the Patriots early in Mahomes' career that have beaten the Chiefs in the AFC in a playoff game, right? So that he gets that knock, but it's almost becoming a legacy, right? It's almost like a legacy notch for Joe Burrow. Eventually, we need to see him consistently do it. We need to see him stay healthy, not start a season off like he has no idea what he's what he's doing. I am concerned about the wrist, but again, I guess I'm kind of going with a little bit of a legacy pick here with him. But T. Higgins did finally signed the franchise tender. Looks like he's back for 2024. So him and Jamar will be there. They will be healthy. The receiver core is very, very good still, even if defensively. We'll see what happens in the future. But right now, they still got Trey Hendrickson, and I love Geno Stone coming from the Ravens to Cincy. Huge addition to the secondary.
Yeah, they brought someone back in the secondary too. It wasn't the guy that went to Atlanta. I'm blanking on the name.
It was Atlanta. The safe. Not Von. It was either Von Bell.
It was Von Bell.
Von Bell was with the Panthers, I thought.
Yeah, and the guy that went to Atlanta is still in Atlanta.
Okay.
Von Bell, they really missed him last year, and they might be in a little bit of trouble. And here's why. The Chiefs, as their salaries ballooned, and I'm talking Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, et cetera, their line becoming more expensive, they had to draft very well. And Veach has been up to that challenge. Now, in Cincinnati, you have guys like Daxton Hill, Miles Murphy, who look like they could be bust. And then this year, I like their draft, but Amarius Mims and Jermaine Burton, those are huge risks. Those guys could be all pros. They could be guys that aren't on the team next year. So, I think they're going to have to hit to stay in that top tier of AFC teams. And I'm just not sure where they're at. I also don't understand the slow starts. Maybe that's coaching. Their coaching staff on the offensive side, I think, is a little slow to make adjustments sometimes. I love Lou Anarumo on the defensive side, but what do you think's behind the slow starts?
A lot of it's preseason. I'll firmly believe this. You know, I talked with Tim Grunard about this, obviously former Kansas City Chiefs legendary center. You know, he puts an emphasis in how important preseason is. Andy Reid puts a huge emphasis on preseason, as well as, let's be real now, training camp. Everyone says it's done differently here in Kansas City. I think there's something to that, getting the Chiefs ready to go early on in the season. You are more prepared. But I find it fascinating. I was talking with Joe Theismann in Tahoe, and, you know, obviously an older quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. He basically said that, you know, Jaden Daniels shouldn't play in the preseason. He kind of viewed it as, in today's NFL, if you're a bad team or you're a team like that, you maybe get a snap or a series, 2 tops in the preseason. That's all you get. Because if you get injured, you're done. Your hope's gone. Coach is probably getting fired. Like there's just so many different scenarios there. And I thought an old school guy was going to talk about the importance of the preseason and getting ready and all this stuff. And he's like, nah.
Well, he knows a thing or two about getting injured as a quarterback. So unfortunately, and it's crazy that him and Alex Smith for the same team, and I believe the same day, had basically the same injury. Yeah. Poor bastards. Not great.
Wow. Why do you call them bastards, dude?
It's just an expression. I love both those guys. Who doesn't like Joe Theismann and Alex Smith? Okay,
that was a good pick, by the way.
That was a good pick. You get another one, number 5.
I'm between. Nah, it's obvious. It's the Bills. I don't believe Bill Barnwell's rankings right here. I think it's a little silly. If you don't pick Bills in this situation, I think you're out of your gourd. Whatever your thoughts are on the lack of weapons, which is true, it's Josh Allen. It's top 3 quarterback in the NFL, and I personally think he's number 2. He's going to have a lot on his plate. That's nothing new. They have had success against the Chiefs in the regular season, obviously. Defense is up and down, but Josh Allen's used to not having a ton of weapons, and I do think Dalton Kincaid is phenomenal. While the receivers aren't great by any means, Josh Allen will find a way to get it done in the regular season. So for that, I'm going with the Bills at pick number 5.
Yeah, and for reference here, Barnwell's offensive weapons ratings, he had the Bills at 24th, and the defensive ratings ranking was 22nd. So,
correct me if I'm wrong. Their linebacker, Milano, should be back this year, correct?
yeah, I think they have, their secondary's wiped out, but they have a lot of players that were dealing with injuries in that linebacking core that are back. This really comes down to Josh Allen. And I think this pick you're making is not necessarily on the team, but just that they have the one guy when he's at his best. He's the one guy who Patrick Mahomes can be playing out of his mind and doing the absolute best Patrick Mahomes can do. And on any given day, Josh Allen can keep up with him. Now, probably 5 times out of 7, he can't, but there'll be a couple times where he can. We saw that in that famous shootout in Kansas City that the Chiefs won in overtime. I mean, nobody, including Tom Brady, I think, has ever played that well against Patrick Mahomes. So, oh man, winning that coin flip was just instrumental for your draft. But I think there's an obvious pick here, and I don't know about the 7th pick, but the 6th pick, I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns. Defensively, they're ranked number 2 here. Offensively, I think they've added some weapons. Just really betting on, I mean, if you look at the rest of the teams on the schedule, it gets putrid pretty fast. The Chiefs division is just a barren wasteland. So I'm not going to go with any of those teams. And I really don't like any of the NFC teams this high, other than, of course, the 49ers. So I'm betting on this coaching staff. I'm betting on a very talented roster. If Deshaun Watson can play just, I don't know, 20% better than he has been playing in Cleveland, if he can kind of put it together a little bit more, and if that coaching staff gets on the same page with him, they haven't exactly been on the same page, I think this team has a lot of upside. And if Cincinnati isn't quite its old self once again, if the Baltimore Ravens, after losing some pieces, after losing their defensive coordinator, if they take a step back, the Browns are going to be right there. So I'm going to go with them. Any thoughts there?
Yeah. Who would have thought that if the Browns had a league average quarterback after trading and paying like $245 million guaranteed, they'd be a good team. I mean, Joe Flacco looked like the greatest quarterback in the world in comparison to Deshaun Watson because he was that bad. Like, it's wild to me. They didn't bring back Flacco because they didn't want a quarterback controversy. Flacco's like 40. And they're like, yeah, we don't want a quarterback controversy. With Joe Flacco, we saw what he looked like as a Jet. We saw what he looked like in Denver. Dude's a statue. Like, he played great with the Browns, but that just also goes to show you how good the Browns' offensive line is. Stacked.
Yeah. Oh, it's
how they
good.
have some weapons. It's just wild to me. If Gardner Minshew was the Browns quarterback, that's like an 11-win team, 12-win team. But with Deshaun Watson, you're looking at maybe 9 to 10. You're right. It all comes down to him. My one question I have with the Browns, we were enamored with the defense last year. There is so much talent on that defense, but can they have the exact same thing going at home that they did last year? Because on the road, they were actually very bad. On the road last year, the Browns defense was not good. At home, they were. Is that a legitimate year-over-year home field advantage that can continue? We know teams are a lot of times better at home than on the road, just sleeping in your bed, different strategies, different, leading up to game day, right? You're used to it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there Houston Astros trash can banging going on? I don't think so in the NFL. I think it's too hard for that. You don't have enough time almost for that. But I do wonder, because the outlier was so different. Which one was the outlier? The defense at home or the defense on the road? This year, we will see.
Well, this is Jim Schwartz's second year calling that defense, and those guys have been together more. Myles Garrett might be the best defensive player in the league. He's right there with Micah Parsons and Chris Jones, definitely. Sauce Gardner, all those guys, just an absolute monster. And I think maybe the wind and the weather there in Cleveland is an advantage to them. It really created chaos for Baker Mayfield. And I wonder if that's part of the quarterback issue. We know Joe Flacco has an absolute rifle for all his faults. And he's he's seen it all. So maybe that's why he came in and played so well. But I like Kevin Stefanski. They did lose Bill Callahan, who's probably the best offensive line coach in the National Football League. So maybe that helps out Chris Jones and George Karlaftis and the defensive line for the Chiefs when this matchup happens. But yeah, Nick Chubb, another huge X factor. When is this game? This is late in the year, so they'll probably have Nick Chubb back. You'd rather get them early in the year where they can't rely on their stud workhorse as much.
By the way, I don't know if you saw Nick Chubb's video squatting like 550 pounds. It was legitimately insane after the knee injury he went through. If I were the team, I'd say, dude, don't squat that. Don't squat at all. Just play football, man. I know you want to be in shape and all that. That's more of like a TikTok or whatever it is. Like, look how strong I am, trying to prove you're healthy. Oh, those knees can't be liking that. But when the metal bar bends at like 45-degree angles because of that much weight, your mind's blown. Good for Nick Chubb. It's impressive what he did. But if I were the team, I'd say, hey, Nick, maybe drop down 100 to 200 pounds on that squat. We don't need to see you do that, bud.
We call that Bo Jacksoning. Just an absolute freak there. So now I have to make another pick, and this is really, really rough. And
I disagree. I think there's an obvious one, and I'm not going to tell you because if you take it, I'm going to be pissed.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot for the moon here with a new quarterback, a new coaching staff, and a set of offensive weapons that are just unreal, and really a weak division and a weak conference. I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons as a potential sleeper surprise team. Did I guess what you were going to do?
Yeah.
It was obvious. I mean, I had to do it. It was really the only team that I can realistically make an upside case for. I mean, what other team here can I make a huge upside? They're a playoff team, presumably here. So Kirk Cousins, you got the new coaching staff. I really like the trifecta of Pitts, London, and Bijan Robinson. Great offensive line. We've talked about it ad nauseum on the show. Great offensive line. The defense, so their weapons, Barnwell has them at 10th. Their defense, Pro Football Network has them at 27th. They've got to improve that defense. I really wish I'd feel better about this pick if they didn't pick a quarterback 8th overall and they picked a pass rusher or a cornerback. I'd feel way, way better about this. But, some people probably said that about the Chiefs when they picked Mahomes. So you never know. I'm not saying the kid from Washington is going to be anything like that, but doubling down on quarterback's not a bad move, but I just wish they had a little bit more firepower on defense. Your overall thoughts on this pick?
I'm pissed is my overall thoughts. I wanted the Falcons, man. I've been high on them. It's a bad division. I think the Chiefs are, I don't want to say lucky, but I think it behooves them to play them early on in the season, maybe while Kirk Cousins and the team starts to try and still get things figured out. But the big thing is the horrendous offensive coordinator is gone. The guy from Arthur Smith, who went from the Titans to the Falcons and now to, for some reason, the Steelers decided to pick him up, which is just mind-blowing to me. But maybe it's a good fit for Pittsburgh because it's similar structure to Tennessee, right? That's the thought. But Bijan Robinson is going to break out. Kyle Pitts will be a major focus yet again this year, for the first time, I should say, since his rookie year. Drake London, outstanding. Their offensive line is really, really good. I've been high on Kirk Cousins pretty much my whole life. I think he's a very underrated quarterback. No, he's not necessarily an elite quarterback or necessarily maybe even a major needle mover, but he's in the same bucket as Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, almost Matt Stafford. I think Matt Stafford's kind of the top of that bucket right there. But I think Kirk is a little underrated at times. This is the first year I see Sean Pitts, whatever, over that dream. This is the first year I've actually been excited about Kyle Pitts yet again. This is the first year. Finally. Defensively, they need an edge rusher. They're not going to get pressure on the quarterback. That's a major concern. But their secondary should be much improved. I think
AJ Terrell, right?
Yeah, and I think the defense is a little lower than where I would have actually had him in a ranking situation. I think the Falcons are going to be a pretty damn good team, and I'm glad the Chiefs played in week 3. I don't think it would have mattered necessarily if the Chiefs beat the Falcons no matter what the week is. But again, I think it does behoove the Chiefs to play them week 3. So I actually love that pick for you.
I'm going to plant a flag here and say that game is a trap game in flashing neon lights. If you look at the schedule, the Chiefs have the Bengals and Ravens, 2 rivals. The Cincinnati Bengals at this point are probably their biggest rival, them and the Bills, to kick off the season, and the Ravens. And then they go into Atlanta Sunday night in the Dome, Sunday Night Football. And this city, this fan base is starving for some attention, for a breakthrough. I think the ATL is going to be super fired up for their Dirty Birds, and the Chiefs can't go sleepwalking in that game and look past them to the Chargers, or they could catch an L.
I will also point out, I talked to Matt Ryan last week, and pretty fun, really nice guy, and said some interesting comments and stuff about, the drafting of Michael Penix. If you want to check it out, it's on my Twitter account. I retweeted it under one of the links I have, but it was a nice 25, 30-minute long conversation. One of the questions we asked him was, do you remember what Chris Jones said to you on that on the pass interference when he was with the Colts at that point? Actually, he said no, and I believe him. He had a whole bunch of reasons why. A lot of times quarterbacks don't hear what's going on. They have the headsets on. So the second you're down, the next thing you know, you're already getting a play call in from the OC or whoever's calling the plays. You're getting it right there in your headset. So you'll be like, sometimes some edge rushers talking smack to you, and you're like, you can't just be like, hold on. You trying to get it done. You're talking to the OC, like, let me talk some smack to this guy. It's like, no, you kind of have to drown it out. And Derek Carr, I think, actually mentioned one time, he has a blackout system where he can't hear anything outside of it because he goes, I had to have that in Arrowhead. Heard that story, which I thought was pretty interesting as well. But yeah, that's a little Falcons Matt Ryan fun right there. So that was kind of nice to bring up.
Great guy. And really, I think that was the only bad team the Chiefs lost to that year when they won the Super Bowl. Just shocking that they lost to that Colts team, but we know they shouldn't have. Okay, right. You're up. You got 2.
I got 2. And
slim pickings.
Yeah, once you took the Falcons, you really made me not happy. I will take this. I'll take the Steelers. Hate it. I'll take the Steelers.
Betting on Tomlin, huh? And the defense.
I'm betting on Tomlin and the defense. Like, I don't think any of these teams left really give the Chiefs any sort of struggle, right? But I think the defense of the Steelers is still phenomenal. I'm betting on Tomlin. They'll be better than last year offensively. You can't imagine they're worse. I mean, I guess Buddy Bell. Don't say it can't get worse. It can always get worse. They lost
Who's going to
Deontay
be the
Johnson.
quarterback, though? Who's going to be the quarterback?
No, my point. It's either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, who either one's better than Kenny Pickett. So it's like, okay.
But week 14,
better.
Does Justin Fields supplant Russell Wilson if Russ gets off to another slow start and continues to look washed?
I think Fields is the answer. I don't know why they would even entertain Russell Wilson unless at best you're trying to go 9-8. If you want to have any sort of variance, you go with Fields. Yeah, you might go 5, and maybe the streak of 500 finally gets snapped, and you go 5-12. But also with Fields, you at least have some sort of upside with him. The offensive line's not great. Harris.
Najee Harris.
Najee Harris. I don't know why.
Jalen Warren, yeah.
Jalen Warren's a phenomenal running back. He's great. Third down back. Freiermuth, I believe, is back as well. George Pickens, talented. The loss of Deontay Johnson is obviously huge. But at this point, I'm going with the defense. And with the defense, I'm rolling with the Steelers.
And you're going with Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson, too. Oh, man, that's ugly. But, maybe the play action bombs that they did with Tannehill, maybe they can work that out. You think they're going to use Justin Fields some early in a Taysom Hill role just to capitalize on his skill set and give that offense another weapon?
They should.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this is not me giving you a whole bunch of hype on Justin Fields, but more or less me thinking Russell Wilson's done. I I don't see why you would not go with Justin Fields. I would say by week 6, Justin Fields is the guy.
Especially for a team that wants to kind of ground and pound, keep their defense off the field and fresh, and wants to run the ball a lot. Justin Fields just seems like a better fit than old Russell Wilson.
I do like ADG. Cordell Fields. Great. Okay.
Slash.
I got one more pick, and this one's tough. It's between 3 teams. Do I go with a team who's pretty good offensively? Do I go with the team who I believe very highly in, but the rest of the NFL does not? Do I go with the team who is perpetually average?
You got to stick with your guns. You've been selling one of these teams all offseason long. Put your money where your mouth is.
And I am going to do it with the caveat that I only take this team if Gardner Minshew is the starting quarterback, because I think the Raiders are going to surprise a lot of people. I hate this. I trust me, I hate the Raiders. It's brutal, not fun. But I think the Raiders are going to be a surprisingly solid, I didn't say great, solid team this year. I think they might sniff a wild card spot. Chargers are atrocious, right? Exactly. Broncos are atrocious. You might get 4 wins right there. You might. Okay? You lose to the Chiefs twice. You're 4-2 in your division. That's 4 wins right there. You have the best defensive line pairing in the entire NFL in Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby. I don't know if you're going to debate that because I don't think you can. The defense should be pretty solid, and they play damn hard for Antonio Pierce. Talking with Derek Carr this past week, he agreed. They finally went with the right move. Maybe it should have been Rich Bisaccia, but now they got it right this time going with AP. This was the guy they should have got. This was the move. And now they didn't mess it up a second time. The Raiders' feel is almost back, right? That passion. While they're not super talented, they're not the most talented team. I ain't going to try and spin you that. They're going to play harder than most in the NFL. It's not going to be enough to beat Kansas City. But they're going to beat, I think, more teams than people realize. You saw the Colts last year almost make the playoffs with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Look at the Colts roster. Now look at the Raiders roster. What's the difference? Not a ton. The offensive line of the Colts is probably a little better. I think
Quentin
maybe
Nelson
the weapons
is probably the difference, you know.
It's Quentin Nelson's probably the difference in the offensive line. DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, right?
Jonathan Taylor, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, running back is not going to be a strong suit for the Raiders this year. But Devontae Adams is a stud. In his 2 years as a Raider, I think people forget how good he is. 1,300 plus yards average and 11 touchdowns a year average. With guys like Aiden O'Connell and Jimmy G throwing him the rock. You have him. You have Jacoby Myers. You have Brock Bowers now. And Mike Mayer looked pretty damn good last year. I think the Raiders will surprise some teams. Maybe I'm wrong. I went with the Texans last year. I don't think the upside of the Raiders is what the Texans were last year. But I think the floor is pretty damn high in Vegas. I'm rolling with them.
Yeah, if you're going with the AFC West teams, this is the right call. Let's just compare their rankings, their offensive weapon rankings. The Raiders at 23, the Chargers at 32. Oof. And the Broncos are at 30. So very bad there. But defensively, team defense-wise, the Raiders are ranked 9th. And with Antonio Pierce, that second half of the season, they were lights out. They were one of the best defenses in the league by many metrics there. And then if you look at the Broncos, I believe, where the hell are they? They are 32nd on defense, and the Chargers are 28th. So the Chargers have Justin Herbert. So if you look at them and you're like, oh God, their weapons are 32nd, their defense is 28th, you know, that's a horrendous roster. Well, they have the franchise quarterback. The Broncos, what do they have? And that was something we've been talking about. I think I have an obvious pick here. And this is the other kind of team that I think could probably eke out the NFC South. And that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Can Baker Mayfield take another step? I really like that offense. Offensive line needs to be better, but they have Godwin, who I love, and Mike Evans is still cooking. Rashad White, I think if they block a little bit better for him, he looks a little bit like David Johnson. Really good receiver out of the backfield. Tristan Wirfs, just an absolute animal at tackle. Like some of the talent there. Just kind of like what they did last year. I thought they surprised people. This is a playoff team, right? If I'm recalling correctly. I think they got bounced immediately, but there just didn't seem to be any other choice on the board. I know the defense isn't very good, but if I'd rather bet on when teams are kind of this bad, I'd rather bet on a team with some offensive upside, because defense is a little less static, and we expect this offense to probably be good again, unless Baker Mayfield face plants. And let's be honest, that's completely possible. That's within the range of outcomes. So, but I feel pretty good about that pick. Oh God, these next four. There's something that I want to do. That I look at that coaching staff and I look at that quarterback and I just don't think I can do it. So I'm going to bet on Justin Herbert. I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Chargers just because I think we've seen in Kansas City what a great coach quarterback pairing can do for you. I think they're building a really good offensive line. The weapons aren't great, but Justin Herbert is such a good player, and I think they're going to run the ball. Maybe those veterans still have more juice than people think on the other end. I don't feel great about it, but I would feel even worse about the other team. I'm not going to, tip my hat here because I'm going to have, I think, one pick coming back to me. What do you think about the Chargers? You looked a little surprised when I took Los Angeles there.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. Thank you. I appreciate that. Chargers are ass, man. They're 2 scoops of ass.
Well, so is the team you're going to pick.
Herbert's very talented. I will not disagree with that. But at some point, it's like, you got to start doing something, man. You can't just look the part. You got to be the part. Right? At some point, it has to happen. He looks the part. Now you got to be the part. We'll see with Harbaugh. I think they're building the right way in LA with the Chargers. I think it's going to take probably a couple of years. If you told me in 2 years or 3 years, who's the team that's going to at least be the biggest competition to Kansas City? Well, I'd pick the Chargers. But this year, man, it is brutal. Defensively, I think they're bad. Offensively, whoa. I mean, I like Ladd McConkey more than anyone else. I like Brendan Rice a lot. I ain't going to say those two guys are going to go off and be Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. No, that's a different group in LA. I get why you did it. I understand the thought process behind it. I'm just glad you went with them because I wasn't going to take them.
Especially with the Chiefs. They play the Chiefs twice. We know Justin Herbert performs very well against Kansas City. It's been that way since the first time he started, when Tyrod Taylor accidentally got his lung punctured when he was getting an injection for his ribs. And Justin Herbert came in and started on 10 minutes notice and ripped the Chiefs defense to shreds. It was unbelievable. I mean, I think they lost that game, but just from the jump, he impressed me. And I think you're right. He's hanging out in that Dak Stafford tier. But I think with right coaching, he has a chance to go to that bottom of not the Mahomes tier, but the Allen, Burrow, Lamar Jackson, kind of that area that we think CJ Stroud might be entering. I think Herbert has a chance to kind of make that his final kind of resting tier. And I just think divisional play, like you picking the Raiders, there's always a chance that it's going to be a tight game because of how well these teams know each other. So I just felt like going with them over probably the head coach and quarterback you're going to go with next.
I do want to give a shout out to Angry Drunken German again. Always, he might be the mascot for this show. We're only angry when the team loses, though. I do speak a little bit of German, and a lot of times we are drunk, so it kind of is a fitting mascot for.
I'm more German than anything else. So.
There you go, baby. Gifting 5 memberships right there for our Discord. Really do appreciate that, man. Always a fan of you, as well as the fact that you brought up a very good point with Baker Mayfield. One of my favorite things you just put out there was Cleveland would have been in the AFC Championship game last year if they hadn't cut Baker. Probably a good call. Like, imagine if the Browns had Baker last year instead of Deshaun Watson. They might. That's a much more dangerous team with Baker. After he gave his heart and soul to Cleveland, you kick him out for Deshaun, who's done nothing, and he's, quite frankly, still done nothing.
And you defile your reputation. You become maybe the most despised franchise in the league. I mean, it's just a bad look for Cleveland when Baker. Quite frankly, he was okay in Los Angeles too. Getting off the plane, played kind of good. So great point by ADG.
All right, I get 2 picks left, and then I leave you with the leftovers. There's one obvious one left. I will take the Saints. Derek Carr, I think I root for Derek Carr now, man. If you heard me talk about it yesterday on yesterday's show, talked with him in Tahoe the whole week. What a great guy. I mean, he talked about how much he loved playing in Kansas City. He loved the rivalry. He never wanted to leave the Raiders. He talked about all that, and and he goes, I want to go back and take my kids to a Chiefs game sometime. He goes, I know I'm going to get just pelted with boos and insults, but he goes, like, I want to take my son to a Chiefs game because the atmosphere is so phenomenal in Kansas City at Arrowhead. He loved traveling to Kansas City and playing in Arrowhead. I just thought it was a super cool realization and just emotion from Derek Carr. Talking about how he would remember some of the same people in the crowd every single time he'd come to Kansas City. And I talked about how, you kind of went from the most hated to eventually almost extremely respected on his way out. And then especially now in New Orleans, I've seen so many Chiefs fans say, yeah, I'll root for Derek Carr now. He never wanted to leave. He was going to be a one organization type of guy. Raiders did him wrong, obviously. But the Saints still have Alvin Kamara. They have an okay offensive line, just okay. Chris Olave is very, very good. They had a breakout last year in, what's the guy I wanted the Chiefs to go after? He was in ERFA. Raheem Shaheed. Raheed Shaheed. Defense is a lot of Chiefs castaways, right?
Yeah. The Badgers been great there, though.
He's been great. He's bounced back. Willie Gay Jr. is going to, I think, be a really good player down there. Probably even better than he would have been in Kansas City because he's going to get way more opportunity down there. Pete Werner is a very good linebacker as well. Demario Davis. Tano Passanio still down there.
Colin Saunders, right?
Colin Saunders down there now. Getting a three-peat says Saints are like Chiefs South. They picked up a bunch of ex-Chiefs. Yeah, I don't think Dan Sorensen's there anymore, though. But yeah, I'll go Saints for my 6th pick.
Man, I just couldn't with Dennis Allen and Derek Carr as that combo. And I respect Mickey Loomis, ownership there, that organization. There are a lot of franchises in the NFL who care about the bottom line more than the standings. The Saints aren't one of them. Now, sometimes maybe they spend foolishly and do things, push things a little too far, but you can't say that they don't try. They always go for broke, and I actually really respect that about them. I just think the bill is coming due right now at this moment, and I'd love to see. This is kind of a hobby horse of mine, but I'd love to see. They're not going to keep Alvin Kamara. They're going to cut him after this season because he's too expensive. Love to see the Chiefs acquire him as a change of pace back for the playoff run. I think he would look awesome in red. I mean, the Saints aesthetic is nasty. I mean, I love the city. I love the uniform, but I just think they are kind of on the descent, and unless they hit on the kid that was at Oklahoma and South Carolina at quarterback that whose stock plummeted.
Yeah.
They are going to be
Spencer Rattler, who went to South Carolina. You mean?
I love picking him in the 5th round, but I
Makes
just
sense.
don't think this defense is going to challenge the Chiefs. I know they're getting the Chiefs early in the year, but I just don't like the team very much. But to me, it was the best pick on the board.
Well, yeah, and Sean says, agree with Adam on this one, ain't picking the Aints. Hey, I get it. But when my options are Broncos, Panthers, or Saints, that's the clear pick right there. I think the Chiefs waxed the Saints. Wax them. But between the Panthers, Broncos, and Saints. To me, that was the clear answer. I mean, this kind of goes to show you how top-heavy the Chiefs' schedule is because they are playing the NFC South this year. This was a schedule that somewhat behooves Kansas City, right? You're always going to play a 1 schedule. So no matter what, you're going to play the Bills, right? Because they won their division. You're going to play the Ravens because they won. You were going to play the Texans because they won. You're going to play the... Who else would have? I gotta look back. I can't remember now. Is that it? The 49ers were the throw-in, right? Wait, why don't you have the Bears on here? Chiefs don't play the Bears, do they?
I don't think
they do.
I don't think they play the Bears.
Well, now you got me confused.
I just went right down the schedule, man.
I didn't think they did. Am I that dumb? They don't play the Bears. They played them last year. That's preseason.
Yep.
Sean, what are you doing?
That's preseason. They play them August 22nd.
Yeah, that was last year they played the Bears in the regular season. Remember that was the whole game that was flexed, so they kept it so that way that couldn't be the overseas game? Sean, don't confuse me. I get it's confusing. You look at the schedule, you see preseason, and you're probably wondering why we didn't pick the Lions either. All right. 2 teams left. Broncos, Panthers.
It's like Russian roulette, man. It's terrible.
Give me the Panthers. They're more talented than Denver. You have fun with the quarterback carousel in Denver. Have fun with Sean Payton. You enjoy that. Have fun with the team completely devoid of talent. Neither team has a quarterback, but at least the Panthers have a skosh of talent. Just a skosh. I do like Xavier Leggett. I like him with Jonathan Mingo, even if they are about the exact same player. I just think the Panthers are slightly less ass than the Broncos.
I like the pick. I'm bummed out. Thought you were going to do it because you were very low on the Broncos, but Dave Canales, their new head coach, was the offensive coordinator that helped Baker Mayfield find his groove last year in Tampa Bay, helped that offense click with the new quarterback. And also he played a big part in the kind of restoration of Geno Smith. So he's something of a quarterback whisperer. And I think it's too early to give up on Bryce Young, last year's number 1 pick. They've upgraded their offensive line considerably. They've brought in a couple new receivers. Your guy from South Carolina, Xavier Leggett. They also brought in a favorite of this show, Deontay I get open at Will Johnson. So the kind of guy
I
that
love Deontay Johnson. Why couldn't he been a Kansas City Chief?
Because the Steelers said they wouldn't send him here. That's why. He would be perfect because he just quarterback's best friend, never really played with a good quarterback because by the time he got to Pittsburgh, Roethlisberger was completely washed up, just a has-been at that point. I think they're probably going to have a good running game. This was the consequence of picking second and third. Yeah. Sad sack, man. I'm going to pick the Denver Broncos, and the optimistic case for this team is that they actually looked pretty good the second half of the year, especially on defense. They turned a corner. They finished with, where did they finish? 7-9, something like that. Sean Payton didn't have the greatest first year, but you have to look at his track record. This is a Hall of Fame coach, a Super Bowl winning coach, a coach that is, it's not just Drew Brees. He had good seasons and good moments with Teddy Bridgewater, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill. So maybe Bo Nix is a surprise quarterback. He is one of the most experienced quarterbacks to come into the NFL. He's the kind of quarterback that Sean Payton likes. He's a quick processor. He's smart. He's tough. I'm really selling here, selling hard. Man, I don't know. I like Troy Franklin during the draft process, and I like Marvin Mims. They've got some speed at receiver. I don't know about the running backs. I don't know. Hey, Quinn Miners. Quinn Miners is a stud. Patrick Surtain. They've got some talent on that roster, but yeah, I'm talking out my ass. I tried.
Yeah, that was. I will tip my cap because
I'm not
you
Lou.
tried
I
your
can't.
best.
He was selling it last week. I can't do it that well. I just haven't bought in completely. But I'm glad they finally, for their sake, they finally rebooted that thing. Unplugged the modem. It was time because they were just kidding themselves. And I think that's the worst thing an NFL team can do. But as far as the Chiefs and the Broncos are concerned, I know recent history has been a little funky before they finally broke that, 15-game streak. But once again, I think the argument for the Broncos over the Panthers is those inter-division games get a little funky, get a little fluky. We saw that on Christmas Day. I mean, on Christmas Day, when you were talking to your relatives, did you think there was any chance that Chiefs team would go on to win a Super Bowl? Because that was rock bottom for me. I thought, I don't know, man, this team might just not have it, especially at receiver. I just don't think they have enough juice. And it turns out that the Raiders were just fired up to play the Chiefs, probably wanted it more than the Chiefs did. The Chiefs were probably thinking about their Christmas plans, and you never know when the Broncos or Raiders play the Chiefs.
Yeah. Again, the final rankings. Adam Best had the Ravens, Texans, Browns, Falcons, Bucks, Chargers, Broncos. I had the 49ers, Bengals, Bills, Steelers, Raiders, Saints, Panthers. Again, I think my squad is better than his, but I will also point out, I think this kind of goes to show you that the Chiefs have a nice path to, I think, 12-5 at a absolute minimum. Mahomes talked about winning a Super Bowl last year and said it wasn't fun. We didn't play very good. And if you were Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, or any other quarterback right now, you're sitting, bleep you guy. You're telling me you didn't have fun and you just won back-to-back Super Bowls? Yeah, bleep you. Thought that was absolutely hilarious. That now the Chiefs are just stacking Super Bowls, and if they don't win in glorious fashion, well, it's not super fun. I think Mahomes has a little bit of Jordan in him. Talked about it how once you've won a Super Bowl, you want to win the next one and the next one. Some guys are content with one, but the greats of the greats, guys like Jordan, like Brady, like Mahomes, they understand that when you lose, that almost hurts more than the success of winning. Right? When you lose, he talked about how, well, now we don't get the parade. Well, now we don't get to have all the offseason events and all the accolades and all the adoration that comes with winning a Super Bowl. Once you've done it, once you've been there and you've been to the mountaintop, you got to stay at the mountaintop. Don't go down Mount Everest that quickly. Soak in the views.
Here's what these two lists are going to come down to. The Bengals and the Bills, because these teams have been better in the past. And I think those quarterbacks, probably the second, third best quarterback in the league, and maybe Lamar is right there too, they can carry them and they can challenge the Chiefs. We've seen that time and time again, especially in the regular season with the Bills, but even the playoffs with the Bengals. But if they take a step back and the Texans take a step forward and the Browns are, they kind of capitalize as well, and the Falcons are ascending. I mean, I think that only the 49ers and Ravens, I feel like definitely they're going to be there at the end, right? All the rest of these teams, there's just too much uncertainty. So it's really not that hard of a schedule the way it lays out. I know the Chiefs don't get a lot of rest and all that. That was the same issue last year. So
I will point out the Ravens, Texans, and Steelers are in the same boat as the Chiefs, right? Mm-hmm. You look at that Christmas Day and the 3 games in 10 days or 3 games in 11, however you want to break it down, those other 3 teams are in the same boat as Kansas City. So as much as we want to make excuses and all that stuff, we expect the Ravens, the Texans, and I think some, not me, but some might have the Steelers in that conversation as a playoff team, right? A lot more riding on the line right there. The Chiefs have it a nice little easier stretch down the tail end than some of those other teams. So if you're a Chiefs fan, as much as we want to complain, I at least have to be unbiased here and say, all right, At least it's fair because the other teams have the same situation the Chiefs are in.
Got a Christmas Day game on Netflix. That's going to be fun. I think the league has to be really happy with that Stroud-Mahomes matchup. And we saw last year with the Lions being kind of the new upstart contender, they're going to be fired up to play the Chiefs because you play the Chiefs and you get a W on national TV. All of a sudden, the nation is paying attention to your chances, to your franchise. So that will be interesting to keep an eye on December 25th. That's all we got for you guys today. Thanks for hanging out with us on Hump Day. Props to the chat and our members. We appreciate you guys, especially the mascot, Angry Drunk German doing his thing as always. Subscribe to the AA podcast anywhere you can find podcasts and also here on our YouTube channel. That way you never miss a show. It also helps us out. Join us next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central here on the Arrowhead Addict channel. Until then, go Chiefs.